Hi, everyone. My name is Shivi, and I'm the House representative, or one of them rather, from the 2021 class committee. Welcome to the second Real World for Recent Grads event. Based on the beloved Senior Spring event series held over the past several years, Real World for Recent Grads will bring together recent Harvard College graduates across the 10 classes to learn from each other and discuss relevant real-world topics. This virtual event series will be hosted by class leaders in partnership with the Harvard Alumni Association. Today, we'll be discussing work-life balance. We hope that these are fun, informal, casual, for us, by us events. We also hope that these can be conversational and not just a lecture. So if you're able to, please have your camera turned on, and we welcome your participation in the chat during the opening remarks. Feel free to also unmute and share anything during the discussion portion at the end. We will be recording these sessions to share by email with recent grads after and to post on alumni.harvard.edu. Before we kick off, I'm going to turn it over to John Prince at the Harvard Alumni Association to share some brief remarks.
Thank you, Shivi, and thank you all for being here. It's great to see you. So since this is just the second of these event series so far, I wanted to give a little bit of an overview about how these came to be and what this will be about going forward. So first, a huge thank to our three speakers today, Athena, Terza, and Denise. We really appreciate you sharing your stories with us all. And so this is another event that brings together all of the 10 recent grad classes. So at the HAA, we define recent grads as those up to 10 years out. So currently, that's the classes of 2022 back to the class of 2013. I'm actually a member of the class of 2013. It's my 10th reunion year, so I'm about to exit this cohort. So I'm happy to be a part of this event series while I'm still a recent grad myself. So a little bit of an overview. I always like to start with the mission of the HAA at all of our events. So the HAA is the official association of all alumni of Harvard University, including more than 400,000 alumni. And this isn't just the college, it's all the graduate and professional schools as well. Our mission is to maintain and enhance a highly engaged, vibrant community of alumni and friends worldwide. So our mission is to bring alumni together and connect them to the college and the university. Within the HAA office, the College Alumni Programs Office of the HAA serves more than 100,000 Harvard and Radcliffe College alumni, and our office oversees and develops programming to preserve and maintain Harvard traditions and to create new opportunities to connect members of the Harvard community with one another and with the university. In my role on the reunions and classes team within the College Alumni Programs Office, I work with the youngest cohort of the college alumni community, and that involves everything from working with our current undergraduate students, engaging them with alumni, all the way up through the 10th reunion class. So that obviously includes recent grad programming like this. So how did this event series came to be? Well, we work very closely with alumni volunteers in our office. And one of those alumni volunteer committees is the HAA Recent Graduate Engagement Committee, and they facilitate the meaningful engagement of Harvard College recent grads with the Harvard alumni community. This is a group of the class committee leadership, so the first and second marshals, the secretary, the treasurer of the college classes up to 7 years out, and they review and design processes to support recent grad volunteers, welcome new ones, and create cross-class programming like this. In addition to the Real World series, you might be familiar with other events for recent grads, including Welcome to Your City, held in the early fall, Harvard Yale Recent Grad Tailgate, held on the Harvard campus every other year, and then opportunities to connect with recent grads with students as well, such as the Class Color Connect to connect with the sophomore class, and Class Families to connect with the junior class. So for our Real World series, many of you may have been to our first one that we had last month on financial and retirement planning. Of course, we're now at our second one on work-life balance. And then we have a third one planned for this academic year. This will be in June, date still TBD, but we'll follow up soon when we have that. And then we'll likely continue more of these with different topics next academic year. So that's just a high-level overview before we get started. And now I'll pass it back to Shivi.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Super excited for the conversation we'll have today. I feel like this is a topic certainly close to my heart. First up among our speakers will be Athena Bowie, class of 2015. Athena worked with top film and gaming studios before heading R&D for a leading ad agency and co-founding a film festival in LA. Despite being in fun industries, she has been through burnout, golden handcuffs, hustle culture, and back. She now takes both work and play seriously as she runs her own research consulting business while traveling full-time and pursuing her interests. Athena, over to you. I know we just had Athena. Is she still with us?
I just saw her. It looks like she's not on the list of participants at the moment. We might pivot first to Tirza and then come back.
That sounds good. Teresa, it's good to see you after a long time. It's fun how these bring us together. Let me give you your proper introduction. So, Teresa is a creative director and operations manager for iRock Sports, the team management company for world number 6 WTA tennis player Coco Gauff. Prior to her current role, Teresa worked in fashion management as a visual merchandiser and stylist for URBN Inc., the anthropology group. With frequent travel between tennis tournaments and brand partnership meetings, she prioritizes setting aside time to go and smell the roses, or in other words, time to focus on the everyday joys of family, gardening, and learning new skills and knowledge. Teresa, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Oh, it's so good. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. It's so nice to be doing this event. So thank you, John. Thank you, the Alumni Association, thank you, Shivi. Thank you, everyone, for putting this on. It's just really lovely to be able to have this kind of space. I'm looking at the images of everyone on here, and everyone's so nice looking. It's so good. Wow, everyone's glowing. Anyways, my name is Teresa. According to my bio, you know everything about me now, but in case that wasn't enough, I was class of 2020, and I was Elliott House, so any other Elliott House people on here, whoop whoop. I was also a member of class committee. I was the media chair, so it was really nice seeing the logo kind of pop up on the first slide, John. And as well as, you know, I studied neuroscience undergrad and also art, film, and visual studies. So my current work, I would say, definitely deviates from where I started, but I guess that will kind of inform what I was hoping to share with you today. And like Shivi mentioned, it would be nice if this was a conversation. Like, I have a topic that I would love to discuss, but feel free to like write anything in the chat. I would love to answer it if there's a way that I can see that efficiently. And it's also funny because Shivi and I studied abroad together, so it's really nice to see her again and yeah, bring us all together online. Okay, so yeah, work-life balance. I feel like this is the big question of our like modern society, right? Like when we think back about history and what big questions people studied, it's like, oh, you know, what came first, the chicken or the egg, or something like that. And now it's like, how do we actually have a meaningful life while also working towards our career goals and our work, which is also equally important in today's like ever-changing, ever-complexifying society. I think for us, the pandemic was the start of something huge. And with the pandemic, you know, I'm sick of talking about it just as much as anyone else is, but with the pandemic, I really think it gave us all a lot of perspective, in addition to potential heartache, potential struggle, but a lot of perspective on actually what it means to be on this big rock in space, right? Like, what does it actually mean to get up every day and go to work? What does it mean to get paid? What does it mean to have a family? What does it mean to find joy in hobbies, find joy in your time off? And I think there's something that I discovered during the pandemic that allowed me to, I guess, prioritize things that I didn't think I needed to prioritize and make a radical shift in my life. And so, as I mentioned before, I studied neuroscience in my undergrad. I thought I was going to be going straight to medical school. I was pre-med. I did Crimson EMS, so if anyone did that, or did any of the numerous pre-med things on campus. I studied research at a research lab. I was basically set to go. And then I just felt something wasn't right. I was not satisfied. The pandemic happened. So anyone in 2020 also knows that this was not the time to, I guess, make a change, because the change was there for you. So during the pandemic, I started to pare back on what actually meant a lot to me. It was really rough for me going through the pandemic. We had people that passed away in our family. We had people that lost their homes in our family. And I started to think, what does it actually mean for us to work 9 to 5 every single day? Like, what is the joy in that? What is the purpose of that? And through a lot of research, I stumbled upon this concept called ikigai. And you may have heard of it. It's definitely very trendy now online, but ikigai is a Japanese word. Iki meaning alive or life, or gai being benefit or worth. And the reason why I was drawn to this particular word is because I did study abroad in Japan with Shivi, and so I already have a particular affinity to the culture and also the language. But ikigai is a very special word in Japan, and I think it's a really good way of thinking about work-life balance, especially in the US context. Ikigai is a word that means basically what gives you joy, what allows you to wake up and start your day. Basically, it's your reason for being. I think it's really special that the language has a word for this, because in English, I don't think we really do. We just kind of assume purpose. The word purpose kind of summarizes it all, but ikigai really gets at the core of this. And so, why am I even talking about this in the first place? I'm talking about this because this framework is what allowed me to kind of build in practices in my life to make sure that I was on point with my own personal goals, with my hobbies, and finding purpose and meaning outside of my work. Now, don't get me wrong, work is meaningful in itself, and it's definitely part of this ikigai framework. You shouldn't just throw it out, but it's all about creating balance in addition to things you enjoy. So what is ikigai? So basically, it's not the same thing as just pleasure or joy. I think a lot of people confuse that, but it really relates to this concept of flow in your life. You may have heard of it in psychology. When you're kind of in a state of flow, that means you're really grooving with something. Things are coming in as they're going out. You feel adequately stimulated, but also challenged at the same time. Now, this also doesn't just apply to getting a piece set done. I don't know why I'm thinking of that as an example, but it also applies to your life at large. There are ebbs and flows in our life. We have many low points. I'm currently getting out of one right now. Let's just keep it real. And there are also many high points where our life really feels like we're in flow. Like, it feels like we are doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're happy. People are healthy, and that's okay. These are moments that we should, try to work towards and encourage if possible. So ikigai basically describes that. It's the intersection of your passions, your talent, and your potential to benefit others, basically. So doing this research and understanding kind of what this Japanese word meant and how it could apply to me all the way in Michigan, that's where I'm from. Basically, what it allows you to do is it's to sit down and answer 4 basic questions. You can do this right now if you want. You can take a note, write it on your phone, make a sticky note. Basically, the 4 questions are: what do you love? What can you be paid for? What does the world need? And the last one, how am I writing? It's kind of small. And what are you good at? So I encourage you to write those 4 questions down and answer them honestly with yourself. By doing so, it actually can expose a lot about what your true passions are. So back to my narrative, and then I'm going to wrap this up quickly because I want to get to your thoughts and ideas and discussions. But back to my narrative. I was in a place where I was going go, 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 do to pursue what I thought was my true passion in medicine. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the human body. I love thinking about healing the world, and I love everyone who I know who has chosen this path and is doing it so diligently. I knew for me, though, something wasn't right because I felt a really strong pulling towards my family. And I felt that by going straight into medical school, it didn't allow me the space to spend time with my family and also learn more about my true passions and hobbies underneath medicine, because I still felt that I had all this creative energy. I had a lot more to give besides anatomy. I could recite you all the bones in the body, but I also have more to me than that. So by filling out these, ikigai little charts, you can Google one and find it, or answering these 4 questions, it forced me to really put perspective. And that's how I got basically into fashion. I understood that what I really liked about medicine was connection with people. And what I really loved doing in my day-to-day was actually making people feel good, but not necessarily prescribing medicine. Like I really enjoyed that genuine interaction and seeing a really quick change in someone feeling confident. I loved seeing people look their best. I love seeing people look beautiful. And I also enjoyed clothing and fashion and, what else are you going to do in the pandemic? But, read some books on that or explore your closet, some more, buy clothes online. I think many of us might have developed a shopping addiction, who knows? But, with those things combined, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this whole thing in fashion just a little bit. I knew it was kind of a stretch because it's so hard breaking into creative industries. It really is, especially as a woman of color. But I'm going to try my best. And during the pandemic, there weren't many options out there, but you kind of just take what you can get. So anyways, I went online, I found a job as a visual merchandiser, pretty entry-level job in the field. But that experience taught me so much more than I think I would have learned about myself had I just kept following what I thought I should be doing, because I did all those steps before. Do you see what I'm saying? Because I did crimson EMS, because I did all the pre-med courses, because I, was really into science in high school, I thought, yes, like I must be a doctor. Like that clearly is what I'm interested in. That clearly is where my life is going, and how I'm going to achieve work-life balance is by dedicating all of my time to that and what time is left to family and other things. But without doing that critical analysis that pandemic and other kind of difficult times in your life can bring, I didn't realize that I wasn't achieving this kind of divine, if you want to call it that, purpose, or I guess true sense of passion that I could have been achieving. Don't get me wrong, I think I would have made an amazing doctor right away. But I think taking the time to really self-reflect allowed me to make a pivot. It wasn't a drastic pivot at first, but that change allowed me to feel more confident in my abilities and also really expand in my understanding of what I was capable of. And then, as most things in life happen, one thing led to another, and I'm in the position that I'm currently in now. So with my last few seconds, I just want to say that it's so critical for work-life balance to not necessarily consider work or life and that they're, discontinuous, they can't over intersect. That's not the case. I think work is a much part of your life, and it's all about understanding how you can balance your passions, what you're good at, and what the world needs all together. And I think if you look at what people in Japan are doing with Ikigai, it's a good example of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Teresa. That's so cool. I mean, honestly, I had never heard of the concept of Ikigai until you shared it with us. And I find it really interesting that it, challenges you to be courageous about your passions, but also, has space for thinking about too, what could be a career? What can you get paid for? That's something I hadn't seen in other frameworks as well. Up next, we have Athena. And so Athena, let me reintroduce you so that way we can launch into what you have to share with us. Athena worked in top film and gaming studios before heading R&D for a leading ad agency and co-founding a film festival in LA. Despite being in fun industries, she has been through burnout, golden handcuffs, hustle culture, and back. She now takes both work and play seriously as she runs her own research consulting business while traveling full-time and pursuing her interests. Athena, over to you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And it was great to hear. I haven't heard anyone talk about Ikigai in a while. So actually that feels like so perfect for this discussion. So I'm glad that got to hear more on that. I want to talk a little bit about some of how I've approached work-life balance over the years. I think when I first graduated, not going into one of the more established career paths that many Harvard people go into, whether it's law school or finance or consulting, was a little scary sometimes. And obviously, like many of you, have lots of friends who have been through those, and I've seen how they've progressed. So I just wanted to share some of the things that I've learned both in my life and kind of watching my friends in a lot of different career paths. And one of that is when you get out, not necessarily knowing exactly what you want. And I think Teresa actually spoke to this too, where you may have set yourself down a particular path and then not necessarily being sure that you want to continue it and not being sure what that means. I know for me, one of the biggest approaches that has helped is the idea of life crafting. So this is kind of figuring out what is it exactly, not just like what do you want in your career, but if you think down the line, really imagining what kind of person you want to be, you can almost make it into a caricature, but what does that person look like, sound like, what kind of things are they doing every day, and making it a little less career centric in how you imagine that person. I think it's easy to do that as Harvard grads, because we all have a lot of interests usually, and also, you know, have specialized in something, and you get a lot of praise for some sort of like work that you do in the world. But thinking through on a more basic level, okay, what does this person look like as far as their relationships? What do they do in their spare time? What kind of things are bringing them purpose in their life? And then maybe how are they, you know, like what kind of things are bringing them purpose? And some of that can help inform both career and hobbies and other pieces later. So figuring out what you want, there's different ways to do this. I think Ikigai is a great example as well for how to maybe marry some of the things and find a passion that you can get paid for. I think that's great. But another way, as you're looking for me, is looking at when is the last time you really felt joy and contentment, and what kind of things were involved in that. So I know in college, for example, I gave up rock climbing just because there were a lot of other activities to do. But getting out of college, I realized like that is one of the things that has always been a happy place for me. So making sure that I made time to bring that into my life.
Athena, we lost you for a moment. I don't know if you can hear us again now.
Okay. Looks like they're okay. I can hear you again. Sorry. Yeah, internet has been not as tight today. Yeah, there might have been a little outage. Okay. Can you hear me again? I'm gonna.
Yep, we can hear you.
Thumbs up. Okay, great. Okay, so for me, I kind of have started to look at work-life balance. It is, you are having to balance different things. It is picking and choosing, but I look at this kind of in 3 stages. One is the life crafting, and that's the deciding what you want your life to look like. And it might not be, you're not going to have everything planned out, but starting to understand what kind of person you want to be, whether that's, you know, what do your friendships look like? What role does work play in your life? Is work going to be the thing that you're passionate about, or is work part of just basic security, and the thing that you're passionate about you need to make time for in other ways? And obviously you probably have multiple things that you might be interested in, you know. And then after that is the goal setting and prioritization. I say this not because you have to always have specific goals in mind, but I think a lot of times people, people with our background, we like to have something to strive for, and remembering to open that up to things outside of career. It's very easy to set, like, some things are just easier to measure. And so it's easy to say, oh, I want to get a promotion, or I want to get a job with X amount of money, or things like that. But they might not actually align when you look at all the other aspects of your life that you care about. Oh, let me see if I can. I'm going to try turning off the video and see if that will help. Okay. Okay. Sorry, not the day for the internet to be struggling.
Your audio is good though.
Okay, good. So as far as, I would encourage people, especially if you're not used to it, to consider setting goals in things that are maybe less traditional. So for example, if you realize, that maybe over the course of the last few years, because you've been really engaged with studies or just starting your career, maybe you haven't been as in touch with family, or maybe you realize one of the things that's important to you is being a good son or daughter or a good friend, and looking at and evaluating regularly these different aspects of your life. Specifically, I would look at I would say security, meaning probably job, some sort of whatever's going to help keep you alive. And that may or may not overlap with other passions, but relationships, meaning family, friends, romantic relationships, kind of mental stimulation, actual physical health. I think that one is easy for people to kind of push to the side. That's like one of the first things that gets shunted. I'll tell you, I feel like I was chronically undersleeping for many years, especially after starting the film festival. There were several months every year doing that where I just basically ignored sleep and was getting 4 hours or less for like several months at a time. And that, that's easy to know isn't healthy, but even after that, you don't always realize how much you need to recover from those types of things until you get out of it. So I know they talk about a lot at school, but still, sleep is definitely a really important thing. And it took me like a full year and a half before I really realized that I had how different you can feel after sleeping, and took me a full year and a half to fully recover, as an example. But going back to kind of setting goals for these things, I think it's very easy to choose what I would call vanity metrics. They say this a lot in marketing, where in marketing terms, it would be like if you're a company and you're trying to sell something, and so you hire someone to do a campaign and you get a lot of likes on your page. But if none of those people who liked your page actually buy anything, then you can get as many likes as you want, but it didn't actually move you forward. And I think it's very easy to do the same in a lot of areas of life, where maybe that's money, for example. Okay, you will always have friends that are making more or less than you. And it's very easy to feel like it's never enough, as they call it lifestyle creep. As as you make more money, you start to do more things, which is fun. But slowly that can become a machine in itself. The other thing I think that's really common is, I would call it the compliment machine, where you'll get pats on the back for there are certain things that no one will ever usually be like, that was a terrible decision, to get this type of, like, to strive to get this type of award or this particular job. There are certain things that society will always say, like, that was probably a good thing, or, you know, it never hurts to do this or that. But the truth is that sometimes it can be easy to get caught up in pursuing those things just because they will get you kind of credit with other people, or because you've been doing them, and then ultimately it doesn't serve what maybe you as a person really need. So those are just some common ones that, like, you know, I've found where I would think, oh, I really want to get a different title, or, oh, you know, I'm in this industry, but I need to switch to work at like a Netflix instead of a research agency, you know, those types of things. And ultimately, those aren't necessarily the only way to actually achieve happiness, or, you know, be working on things that I'm passionate about, or get maybe security or anything like that. They can be distractions to pursuing things that are more direct. So once you set some sort of goals, making sure that you actually use the right metrics to measure success, or you're going to find that you always come up short. So if caring for family or friends, being a good friend is really important to you, then you should be looking at, well, do I need to be putting 90% of my effort toward pursuing a particular title change if actually, you know, one of the main things that I care about in life is being a good friend? It doesn't mean you can't also pursue a title change, but make sure that you're also measuring the other aspects of your life. So how many times am I calling my friends or family regularly? Things like how many, you know, am I getting the mental stimulation I need? Hopefully my work is providing some of that, but it might also be like, how many books have you read? I remember coming out of college, I felt like I had stopped reading for pleasure. And then a lot of people would recommend books, and they're all like business self-help books, which yourself, but at the same time, there's a lot of pleasure and intellectual stimulation that I lost in not reading things that I genuinely enjoyed. So being able to say that that is actually something worth pursuing, and then prioritizing it. So that's coming back to, you know, figuring out what's important to you. And then planning for change. So you need to continue to explore, you know, these things will change over time. There are ebbs and flows. I think Terza touched on this. Okay. So different times in your life, you might want to spend more time on certain things than others, and that's okay. And leaving space for you to change how you feel. So regularly updating that person that you want to be in the future, and like what that person is doing, and thinking about how they act toward others and those different aspects of your life, like regularly checking in and seeing if it's still the same. And then the very last thing I wanted to touch on quickly is boundary setting, which is some of how you execute this, which is basically just be intentional about how you use your time and your trade-offs. And I think that's something that was very easy not to do as a recent grad, because you think, okay, I need to establish myself, and, you know, if someone asks you to put in extra hours, you just do, or you want to just be the person that gets everything done all the time, when sometimes they're asking you to do something not knowing whether or not you can actually do it or not. And I think learning to at least understand what your trade-offs are. Boundaries can bend, but don't bend them without consciously deciding which parts of your life you want to give up to do these things. So, you know, if you want to sleep more, something has to move. What is it? If you want to be a top performer, then understand, like, okay, what is it that you need to do those things, and going from there. So I think those are the basics. It's a lot of just reframing to include and be intentional about as many other parts of your life as we often are about more career type things. So life crafting, then setting goals, using the right metrics for those different goals based on the life that, or the person you imagine yourself being, and then boundary setting to actually act on those and support the rest of your life as you go through. I think that's the basis of it. There's a lot that I could go into for each of those, but I wanted to at least give a brief framework of some of the things I've seen work for me and other people. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Athena. I think very, very interesting.
Thanks for bearing with me on the internet here.
Absolutely. I think the vanity metrics thing was really interesting to me in particular, whether you're thinking about a job title that you're going to have to live with, or, the books you're going to read too, and making sure you're doing books that you really enjoy. Next up, we have Denise. So Denise is a member of the class of 2019. She graduated with a degree in economics and worked at Evercore Partners as an investment banking analyst before switching to tech investing at a private equity firm. During the COVID pandemic, she resigned from her lucrative job to pursue her passion in beauty and fashion, placing top 5 at Miss Texas and starting a shoe business. She has studied shoemaking in Florence, Italy, received a patent for her shoe design, and plans to fundraise for her company DNIS Design very soon. At the same time, she serves as the current Miss Texas volunteer and has appeared in numerous brand commercials as an agency-represented actress. Denise, ready for you.
Thanks so much for having me. This is so amazing to really reflect on my own journey as well. And that's really why I love being part of the Harvard community. I've just been seeing all the other people on here and I see some familiar names. So this is so fun to me. I feel like I'm kind of getting to know you guys again after not seeing you guys since college. So this is great. Terza, I love the concept of Ikigai that you brought up, and I'll definitely have to connect with you on the fashion front. And Athena, I get quite jealous of people like you when they get to go into such amazing, cool industries earlier than I did. But that's exactly why I wanted to jump on this panel. To really offer the other perspective where you graduate from Harvard and do go into those corporate jobs that Athena listed. So I think my focus for the next several minutes will be to start a discussion on career transitions in the name of work-life balance. I was sitting with a few friends recently. We're all a few years out of college and just kind of revisiting where we're at in our careers now. And I do think that transition and really my journey, the journey of being a very corporate worker, to transitioning out of that and pursuing creative work or your own business or rebuilding your life, or in my case, all of the above, is actually a journey that resounds with a good number of Harvard students or Harvard alums. So obviously this topic I can probably talk about forever and would love to hear you guys' comments, ideas, pushback as I kind of refine my own ideas around this topic. As mentioned in the lovely introduction, I graduated from Harvard class of 2019. I was in Quincy House, so go Quincy. I studied economics, and all through college, I was pretty intent on working on Wall Street. I felt pretty confident that was what I wanted to do. Dabbled in some finance clubs, didn't really stick, but I did a lot of sort of leadership, business, politics related things in college. And after college, worked at a firm called Evercore as an investment banker for half a year plus an internship, and then decided to go work in tech private equity for a bit over a year. And it was also, as Terza also had this journey, it was during that COVID pandemic time where I was in Hawaii working remote, and I was like, you know what, this is not for me. And made a career transition. And today I design footwear for my own business and am an actress and am a pageant title holder. So it's really been a complete 180 in terms of career, lifestyle, and work-life balance. Obviously, we only have a very limited amount of time that we can talk for, but I have a few themes in mind that I'd love to kind of get the ball rolling on when it comes to career transitions. So if you guys want to explore these themes and topics further, I'm happy to do so in our discussion. The first thing that I really wanted to touch on is when thinking about a career transition, starting in corporate and transitioning is completely valid, and it doesn't mean that you're behind. When I was thinking about my own career transition, I felt a lot of anxiety in terms of thinking I wasted a few years or I didn't find where I needed to go immediately. But in today's age, there really is something to be said about knowing a little bit of everything, or knowing a little bit about a lot of different topics. And you also learn so much from your corporate job and your corporate life as well, that you can really take into your creative career and help bolster your creative career. I actually went to a friend when I was thinking about career transition, and I was really complaining to her about why I have a lot of different interests and I have a lot of random things that I'm good at, but I didn't feel like I had a really clear singular passion at the time. And so I just go to her and I had asked, like, why can't I be obsessed with Excel like the way the other people in my job are obsessed with Excel? Why can't I muster up that same kind of passion for it? And my friend wisely told me to read a book called Range by David Epstein. If some of you guys have also read it, the full title of the book is Range: Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World. And it really talks about why a variety of skill sets and experiences is so useful in helping you become more creative and more successful in whatever you want to do next. So it really paints a picture of being a generalist and being a specialist. And I've always thought of myself as more of a generalist, as somebody who has a wide range of interests and skill sets. And I think a lot of Harvard students and a lot of Harvard alumni resonate with that as well. And just in today's world and society, there's so much use in being able to be a generalist and bridging those knowledge gaps and ultimately becoming more creative as you look at other fields. The second point I really wanted to talk about is how difficult a transition is. I think in general, change is not easy, and the difficulties of transitioning into a new career are sometimes overlooked and brushed over as people talk about the success that they have later, or kind of focus on job one and job two and not enough on the transition. But the transition is definitely extremely difficult. When I was in my investment banking job and my finance job, there were a few other women on the job. There were not that many women, there were just a few. And I had asked one of the female associates in my firm to grab coffee and to kind of chat about career and life and jobs. And so I was testing the waters with leaving my job, and I briefly mentioned to her, this job looks interesting or that job looks interesting. And the comments that I would get was that it was stupid for me to leave my job. And this was a comment that I heard from pretty much everybody at my firm and everybody around me, was that, don't leave. This is a career destructive move to be leaving your firm in search of other opportunities. And at age 22, at age 23, hearing these comments from other people around you who are giving you good advice can be extremely daunting to kind of overcome and to decide to do whatever you want anyway. But at the end of the day, I think you know yourself the best, and it's not what people around you echo as the right way to live your life. It's really your choice to make, and you ultimately know what's best for you. I also found that a lot of people in my industry, obviously they weren't leaving their jobs. So it was also a way of protecting their own ego and kind of making, a choice for why they haven't left their jobs, as telling you that you shouldn't leave yours. The third thing that I briefly wanted to talk about was, a lot of people ask me when they know that a job isn't for you. And I've thought about this question a lot, and there are so many little moments that kind of add up, but I think this has been a really good rule of thumb for me is look at your superiors and bosses and see if that's the person you want to be in 10, 20 years. Again, there weren't that many female in my firm, so I was really looking at females in my firm to see if there was anyone I really admired and lives that I emulated and wanted to aspire to. And I would kind of look around my firm at the VPs and managing directors at my firm and feel like they were just so stressed and they didn't really have the lifestyle or job that I ultimately wanted in my life. So I think it's a really good rule of thumb is see if you see people that you want their life. And if you don't, then maybe a career transition is in the works. The fourth theme that I wanted to bring up that I hear a lot is burnout. And obviously you can have a very long discussion on burnout. And I really think it looks different for everyone, but I just wanted to share my experience and how I kind of navigated through burnout and recognized burnout. I've always considered myself a lifelong learner, and I truly do, as nerdy as it sounds, I truly do love school. I love learning. I loved being at Harvard and being able to study new topics, new ideas. And so the question for me was, am I forcing myself to learn on the job and get better at the job? And I quickly found that that answer was yes for me, that I was having to push myself to learn and get better at the job. And if I keep doing that day in and day out, I'll get burned out pretty quickly. And if you're a natural learner, and if you're somebody who seeks new ideas and new concepts on a daily basis, and you're forcing yourself to learn, I think there's a fundamental mismatch there. And it might be an indication that you might want to transition out of that career. The fifth concept I wanted to touch on is risk. And I say this because I think risk is also a topic that I've discussed a lot with friends. And to take a risk is really a privilege. Not everyone can take a career path that's risky, either for financial reasons, for family reasons, etc. And as somebody with immigrant parents myself, I was raised on really valuing a stable life. And so I understand the concept of risk and leaving a stable corporate job for something that seems more risky while that's in the creative field or in starting your own business. And I do want to mention that I think Harvard in itself gives us an incredible safety net that other people don't get access to. Compared to my peers who graduated from state schools or any other school, there is really no better safety net than graduating from Harvard. And on top of that, if you add a corporate job, that's another amazing safety net as well. So I always felt from my perspective that I had Harvard as sort of a safety net, and I also had 2 years in a financial role where I can always go back to a corporate job if I wanted to leave at some point. So with all the people that come to Harvard, there's so many diverse extracurriculars and interests. My question to myself was, what are the chances that consulting, banking, tech are the optimal career paths for all of us? And I think from that perspective, I wasn't risking all that much in looking for a career path that really, really would resound with me for a lifetime. And I think the last thing that I want to mention real quick before I turn it over, I know we're running short on time, is that coming from Harvard, we're all smart, we're all capable, and we're all capable of learning new tricks and learning new things. And often when you go into a field like consulting or tech or investment banking, you learn a very specialized set of tools and knowledge that you feel like only applies to your field. But really, you're able to pick up any other information that you put your mind to. When I was transitioning out of my finance job, I obviously had no knowledge of how to make shoes or how shoes worked. But because I loved learning, you can always learn how to make shoes, how factories work, how companies work, and you learn on the job as well. So really, it is a very scary thing, but I think we are all capable of learning much more than we think we can. And I hear my friends say all the time they're transitioning from a job in JP Morgan or a job in another corporate field, and they say, well, I don't have any knowledge in X, Y, and Z. And we often forget that we're still capable of learning new things in X, Y, and Z and pursuing new paths. So that's kind of what I wanted to wrap up and hopefully start a discussion on. Would love to hear you guys' pushback, comments, discussions, and of course, if you're transitioning to a near career path or have ideas about it after the panel, would love to keep in touch.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Denise. And it's so great to see, the chat starting up with comments and resources. Please keep them coming. And a big thank you to you, to Terza, to Athena for sharing today and giving us your window into how you manage work-life balance. It was so great seeing everyone here, and thank you all for helping to continue a new Harvard tradition. I think we have about time for maybe one comment or question. If anyone has anything top of mind, feel free to raise your virtual hand or come off of mute or put it in the chat.
You don't mind if I could share something, Shivi?
Absolutely.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Robert. I'm class of 2021. Go Elliott House. Thanks for the shout out, Terza, for Elliott. And a common thing I noticed that Terza, Denise, and Athena shared, it's something that I really agreed with because is about the people you're with. Because after Harvard, I moved here to LA, and I didn't have much of a friend group here in LA when I first started out. And it was pretty tough because although at work at the time I did enjoy it a lot, I realized that I wasn't really happy where I was. But over time, as I got to meet more people, settle in, and understand really just how to meet people, especially in a new city, it's something that made me realize that, even whether it's your work or it's your life, it's really the people that you're with that matters a lot. And right now, I'm glad to say that here I'm building up more of a community in LA. And I've also just found out there's a lot of Harvard people here in LA. So looks like I'll need to do a bunch of hitting up. But the overall lesson I do want to give is that, and I recommend in the chat a book called The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green, is because there's a particular chapter there about when he moved to Indiana. And he was talking about how he and his wife were quite bored and were quite unsatisfied with their lives, but until they started to make friends. And overall, the point is that it's really the people you're with, regardless of wherever you are, and even in your work, that hopefully that it's an environment that you're with people who grow and support with you. So that's just my bit of 2 cents, but thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Very well said. And go class of 2021 representation too. I know that's definitely been something on my mind too, even seeing this group as well, which is just we're outside of that residential community where it's all in place, and be it in person or virtually, making time for the people that, make you feel that sense of belonging isn't as easy as it sounds. But maybe I see one more quick question. We can kind of squeeze in if one of our panelists might be able to give one quick answer, and then maybe we can hold there. I can read the question out loud, maybe then one of our panelists can take it. So how do our panelists, as I assume they're members of underrepresented demographic groups in some of their career areas, navigate the push to work harder to prove themselves in the workplace with the need for work-life balance? Denise, Terza, Athena, everyone want to just offer some quick thoughts there?
I can jump in and just offer a few thoughts. Sorry, I have to turn off my camera as I'm packing up to change my location. But being someone who is definitely a former perfectionist, it's really hard to not also channel any sort of microaggressions or challenges you're receiving because you are a person of color in your field into doing more, you know, as a perfectionist. And I think it's definitely been super difficult. Something I didn't touch on in my talk because it wasn't relevant to work-life balance is the nature of my job. I work with a lot of high-profile people, and you know, more money does not equal more happiness. And oftentimes, I always have to combat people who have problematic ideas or make you feel less than because of your identity. And it's definitely challenging for me to not overachieve just to prove a point. But honestly, I think something that is really important to me is to set boundaries. I think we heard that a lot from Athena and Denise. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I'm using a rented space, so they're trying to kick me out. But basically what I'm saying is setting boundaries with yourself is honestly one of the best ways to demonstrate to people that they aren't the reason why you are overworking yourself. The reason why you are overworking yourself is because you're passionate and that you care. But by setting boundaries, by, you know, I don't work when I'm at home. That's a simple solution that may not always work in every single situation, but allowing yourself the respect of your own time, I think, goes leaps and bounds. And I haven't seen, you know, the detrimental side of that, where if I don't do this, then it doesn't mean I don't get this promotion. It's not as intense or deep as we think. I think it's a lot of it has to do with just respecting yourself and using that as an example to your colleagues and peers.
Thank you, Terza, for jumping in there. We might pause there just for the sake of time, but I do hope the conversations continue. We will also have a third Real World for Recent Grads event in June with the date to come soon. We'll be discussing volunteering and hobbies, so I think feeds off nicely of the work-life balance topic. Email invitations will follow, and if you want to join as a speaker, please get in touch with John Prince. So thank you all again. We'll hold there. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you all.